Hello, I am Josh McLean and this is our audio production presentation, and we are looking at different parts of audio production. The first one is pre-production, production and post-production. This is the process which takes place whilst creating a soundtrack, pre-production being the work you do before, production being recording the track and post-production being the editing. And here is a better explanation.
Pre-production is effectively capturing the ideas of the artist, what they're doing in rehearsal. Pre-production is where a band will come in and sit down with the producer and they will play through the track and will record the track in a very rough way, just to get an idea of how it sounds and what's missing in the track to make it sound commercial, before you spend time then recording everything perfectly. Because once you've spent time to record all the instruments perfectly, it's quite expensive to go back and make any changes. A quick example of what a pre-production track will sound like is this one. Drum machine in the background. The vocals are a little bit tired and lackluster, but it gives an idea of what the song's doing, the song can sound. So the finished product, after we then sat down, worked out what we wanted to do with it and re-recorded it, and it's just allowed us to pick out the best bits of the song, which were, the chorus had a good melody to it, which was lost in the demo, but we've been able to bring that through, layer up some backing vocals, and it just allows me to structure the recording session better if a band's prepared to do pre-production beforehand. Okay, post-production side is normally referred to as mix sound. Drums, guitar, vocals, putting it together will just sound bland and horrible. The standard bits of equipment that you'd use in post-production are compressors, equalisers, and some form of digital effect or analog effect for reverb or delay.
Sequences is the way in which you layer up a track to create the rhythm of a song, which can be repeated over and over again.
The very earliest drum machines you would class as sequences, because you're taking a pattern of sounds of a kick drum and a snare drum and a hi-hat, and you're putting them into a pattern that then repeats automatically to create a rhythm all the way through. So using a sequencer allows you to take a particular sound, so this sound for example, is just effectively a kick drum sound. Yeah. By aligning this on the grid, I can move this over slightly to change the tempo of the way this track is sounding. If I move that back a couple of beats, you start changing the tempo and the sound of the track. Changing the sequence pattern gives you a different sound to the song, gives you a different tempo, and it just gives you the flexibility to make a number of different songs using the same set of samples, because the sequencer will play whatever you tell it to play. In the order you tell it to play it, it will play it on the beat, 100% accurate, and it will do it until you tell it to.
Studio layout is the way in which each separate studio is created to create the different sound in which you want to hear, such as the dead room, the live room.
So this room is a slightly odd shape and the corners are curved in to try and prevent any natural reflections coming back within a specific time to the microphone before the original sound has hit it. Similarly, we've got the sound cloud suspended from the ceiling to make sure that no sound that gets directed downwards can bounce up to the ceiling and bounce back down and have the same cancellation effect.
Yeah.
So it's all about absorbing what's called early reflections of the sound. That allows you to capture the sound and not lose anything when the energy gets reversed as it bounces back. So this room is complete reversal as Ruben has taught. This room is designed to create as much reflection back to the microphones as possible to give a feeling of space. Everything in here has been done to make the room reflective. We've got hard walls, no covers on them, the floor is concrete. We still have the sound house just to contain some of the reverberation, otherwise it would be too messy in here sound-wise. But the layout is lengthwise in order to create as many reflections from the instrument as possible.
So we're now in Studio 3, and what does this room actually have to the live room and the deck room?
This room is a combination of the features of both rooms, in that it's not particularly lively, but it's not totally dead. And we've got the sound diffusion on the boards all the way around the walls, but we've got a hard ceiling, there's no sound clouds in this room. So there's that reflection in here, it mainly comes from the ceiling, and we've got the concrete floor as well, although carpeted. It's a hard surface that just reflects the sound, but not too much. By the time it's bounced up and down, it can't go left or right, because the shape of the room doesn't allow reflections. Sound reflects off of parallel surfaces, so there's no two walls in this room that are equivalent. The shape of the room, we've got a curve going up into the ceiling at different angles from each direction. The back of the room curves in at a 60-degree angle one side, but 90-degree on the other side, and columns coming out again just help break up any of the sound reflection. We've tried to allocate as much space in the construction of these studios as for performing, rather than from doing the actual recording and the post-production.
And effects which are in the post-production, the editing of a sound which you may want to recreate, which you can't do in recording, such as reverberation. So this is a track without reverberation. And this is a track with reverberation.
Recording playback. This is like when you can choose how your recording is going to be played back, and there's like different ways which we're able to do that. I don't actually have any of my information with me, but blasphemy and profanity is like quite a big issue in producing music, because like everyone in the world has a radio, so they have to be careful with like if there's any swearing in the music or anything, or any like offensive things towards religion and stuff. And so usually like you'll hear in the song where it's dubbed out, and they kind of like rewind the track a bit so that it cuts it out. But if like they're not met to the certain standards, then producers can end up in a lot of trouble if they don't abide by the guidelines. Production roles, there's loads of different roles in production. Like I can't remember any off the top of my head, but there's like the mixer, the DJ, the singer, there's loads of stuff. And then legal issues. Obviously there's a lot of legal issues when it comes to producing music, and you have to have a PRS form so that your music is licensed and I'm just doing this off the top of my head, by the way, and copyright laws as well, so that none of the artists get like scammed off by illegal downloading and stuff.
File transfer. Oops. File transfer is movement of one or more files from one location to another. There are two main types of ways which people can transfer or receive files. The first is to receive or send files within a network, such as the Henley College network, which is usually quicker and faster than sending it like over the internet instead. The second way of transferring files is to send or receive files via the internet, which is usually slower depending on the sender's and receiver's internet speed. This option allows people to send and receive files with anyone in the world. When people are sending large files to people over the internet, they usually store the file into a zip folder, unzipped and extracted by the receiving person. The purpose of a zip folder or a zip file, the purpose of a zip folder or a file is to compress the data as small as possible without ruining it. This way it makes it quicker to send their file, because instead of, for example, sending a 1 GB file to someone, you could send a zip folder with the data in it, which is only about 500 megabytes. Then when the receiving person gets a zip file, they can extract it. Bluetooth is also a very common way of transferring files. This is a very popular method for teenagers to use with their phones if they want to send music or photos to friends. ISDN, Integrated Services Digital Network. ISDN standards for Integrated Services Digital Network, an international communication standard for sending voice, video and data over digital telephone lines or normal telephone wires. ISDN supports data transfer at the rates of 64 kbps, 64,000 kilobytes per second. The original version of ISDN employs baseband transmission. Another version called BISDN uses broadband transmission, which is able to support transmission rates of 1.5 megabytes per second. BIDSN requires fiber optic cables and is not widely available. In the Integrated Services Digital Network, ISDN, there are 2 levels of service. The basic rate interface, intended for home, small enterprise, and primary rate interface, which is for larger users. Both rates include a number of B channels and a D channel. Each channel carries data, voice, and other services. The channel carries control and signaling information. The basic rate interface consists of 2 64 kilobyte per second B channels and 1 16,000 kilobytes per second D channel. Thus, a basic rate interface user can have up to 128 kilobytes per second service. The primary rate interface consists of 23 B channels and 23 byte channels and 1 64 kilobyte per second D channel in the United States, or 30 B channels and 1 D channel in Europe. Delay lines. A delay line is a device used to delay signals by some predetermined time. The delay time is determined by the path length of an electromagnetic or acoustic wave within the delay line divided by the propagation velocity of the wave. If you look at the PowerPoint, you'll see a graph showing how delay lines can be used during making or recording sound. All time delaying effects may be created by taking a source sound, copying it, delaying the copy in time relative to the original sound, and adding the 2 together. Such a process is called a delay line. Linear and non-linear recording. Linear editing usually refers to tape-based systems where the data, audio or video, occurs in sequence from beginning to end. For example, to insert a section of audio in a linear editing system, you would have to shuttle the tape to the right location, cut the tape, and then insert the tape of audio you want to add in between the 2 cut pieces. Non-linear editing typically refers to computer-based systems where data can be found instantly without regard to the sequence it was recorded in. Using a parallel example, you can accomplish the same kind of edit on a digital system by jumping immediately to the appropriate place. Cutting and pasting audio data where you want to, overwriting, inserting between, or blending with whatever there is already. Usually this is all saved internally by pointers to audio data, and the edits are applied non-destructively. That is, the original data is still there and you can undo anything. Here is an example of a non-linear audio video editing, where the Ocean's 11 trailer soundtrack has been replaced with footage from the Muppets.
It's never been done before. What's the target? When was the last time you were in Vegas?
The heist is impossible.
Casino security cannot be beaten. You're out of your minds.
Exactly.
You're up to something, Danny. What? You're pulling the job, aren't you? You're a thief and a liar.
I only lied about being a thief.
You're gonna need a crew as nuts as you are. What do you got in mind?
Smash and grab job, huh? Slightly more complicated than that.
We're just supposed to walk out of there with $150 million in cash.
Yeah.
Oh. But these
these guys
That is the sexiest thing I have ever seen.
are just crazy enough
You'd need at least a dozen guys doing a combination of cons.
Do you understand any of this?
I'll explain later.
to pull off the con of the century.
We're set. We're set.
We're set.
Do it already.
George Clooney, Matt Damon, Andy Garcia, Brad Pitt, and Julia Roberts.
Why do this? Why not do it?
Ocean's 11.
You're either in or you're out. I'm staying in.
The next is drive bays. Drive bays were found in old PCs in the early mid-1980s. These drive bays were fixed to the inside of the casing of the PC. These days, though, however, most modern PCs have modern drive bays, also known as internal drive bays. Internal drives are devices that your computer uses to read and store data. You can add drives to your computer to increase storage capacity and enable your computer to read all other types of media. Some of the different drives that are available for your computer are hard drive disks, CD drives or DVD drives, removable media drives. Here is a diagram I found that gives an example of what internal drive bays are used for. Drive bay 1 is being used for a CD DVD drive. Drive bay 2 is being used for a 5.25 inch hard disk drive. Drive bay 3 is being used for a 3.5 inch hard disk drive. Drive bay 4 is being used for a 3.5 inch diskette drive. And drive bay 5 is being used for a hard disk drive, which is pre-installed. Most laptops don't have as many internal drives as PCs do, if any at all. The reason for this is that they are usually too small or slim to fit any more than about 2 or more internal drives usually. However, owners of laptops can overcome this problem by using external drives. These are drives that you can plug in into the laptop by USB, as you can see in the picture.
And then in this section we will be including what we have learned from going to the recording studio and the research which we've done. And then that will be the end of our presentation, and then there will be questions.